I'm a scientist who doesn't have a problem with miracles in scientific terms. Part of the problem that we inherited in the West was Isaac Newton's view of the world. Newton got a few good equations and he applied it to simple systems in the world. Systems like the motion of the earth around the sun, and it worked. And what came from that was the clockwork universe. Newton said, the universe is a bit like a clock. I can predict it because it's a mechanism, and I can know what the world was like in the past, and I can predict what the world is going to be like in the future, and this perfect clock which God created. And the problem was, where does then God come in? Because if I ever got a Rolex watch, which would never be the case, but if I ever did, I wouldn't want to be taking it back to the shop every 2 weeks for it to be corrected. If it's a perfect mechanism, then God can't poke his fingers into the mechanism.
He wouldn't need to.
And actually that was the start of people beginning to doubt miracles within the New Testament. Because they said God can't do miracles. Therefore, some of the New Testament stories, they said, were created by the early church as myths to try and say something about Jesus. But the starting point for that was wrong. The universe is not like a clock. A little bit of it is, a little bit of predictable. But we now know in the 20th century of something called quantum theory, which says that the universe is inherently unpredictable. And chaos theory, which is responsible for things like the weather, which also says, however big a computer you have, you cannot predict the weather with certainty 3 weeks in advance.
We know that in Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that.
Because the universe is much more subtle than that. And this caused the International Union of Mathematicians to issue an apology. Mathematicians don't apologize very often, but 20 years or so ago, they apologized to the general public for promoting this clockwork universe, which actually isn't the case. Now, so I think God sustains the laws of physics. That's his regular ways of working. I think there are areas of science that God can work through, but also believe that if God created all of those laws, he has the freedom to surpass them at times. Hannah's my daughter here, and when she and her brother were small, we had rules and regulations. One of those was about bedtime. They had to go to bed at a certain hour, and by having an agreement on that, they would know how to grow responsibly. Or to put it another way, how many hours of computer games they could play before going to bed. And they needed that in order to have a stable world. But there would be moments in their childhood when the greatest football team on the planet, soccer team on the planet, Newcastle United, were playing on the television.
They're terrible.
In the evening. And because of that, their normal bedtime would be suspended so that they would be able to watch this football match. Now, I think that's what the Bible calls grace. I mean, not watching Newcastle United, but that sometimes God's normal ways of working are transcended for special purposes. Now, Glenn, can I be clear on this? I've said I don't have problems on a purely scientific level. What I do have problems with miracles for, and I'm very open with the Lord about this, is why God answers some prayers but not others. If God can do this, why does he do it in certain circumstances, not others? Why does a dear brother or sister drive their car to the supermarket and think, oh, I need a car parking space near the door, and they pray, and suddenly a car parking space opens up? Now, I have a difficulty with that. Part of me wants to say, thank you, Lord. Rejoice with you, brother, for the confidence in prayer you have. But part of me wants to say, Lord, why do it there? And you're not answering the prayer that I'm praying for the person who's sick with cancer. Do you know what I mean? We all, I think, struggle with that. And that's one of those questions that I have, which I don't have the answer to. I mean, I'm going to be in line, in the new heaven and new earth, hopefully, with a hand raised aloft saying, Lord, can you just explain this? But I don't have an easy answer to things of that sort.